To the cloud. So greetings, everyone. My name is Shantae Paradigm Smalls. I use they, them pronouns. I am calling in today from Canarsie, Muncie, Lenni Lenape, Hoking Territory, Brooklyn, New York, in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn. And I will be teaching today Tonglen, which I'm sure you all know, and we'll be practicing together. But before we get started, I thought I'd ask everyone to just, if you like, we are recording for people who can't make it. If you'd like to just introduce yourself, say where you're calling in from, your name, pronouns you use, and why you're here today. Maybe we can do it that way. So anyone who wants this to pop up, you can unmute yourself and just go ahead. Go ahead, Jane.
Hi, I'm Jane. Use she, her pronouns. I'm calling in from upstate Manhattan, near Fort Tryon Park and the Cloisters. I'm here today. I've recently lost my wife of 36 years. And through the grief process, I was also a part of Shambhala and know you from there. Before the disintegration and tragedies. And I've studied Tonglen, but particularly for this moment to turn my refuge vows into my Bodhisattva vows, which I've done, I know takes Tonglen. I know to be patient with my fearlessness is a Tonglen process. So I'm here to do that in this period of confusion, grief, aloneness, bizarre widowhood. So thank you
so much. Thank you so much for, thank you. Loretta, did you want to go?
Sure, thanks. Loretta, she, her. I am in what is known as Ottawa, which is unceded Anishinaabe territory in what is now known as Canada. I'm here because Tonglen practice and community is good. And Shantae, you may not know this, we did a few assemblies together.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, okay.
Yes, oh yeah, I remember.
I am in a complicated relationship with Shambhala these days. I'm not really doing any Vajrayana practices. I don't, and have been focused on Mahayana, and Tonglen feels like a good piece of that. So it's good to, yeah, I'm still straddling a weird fence with Shambhala. So
okay,
thank
good
you.
to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you too. Thanks.
Again, we're just, for the people just joined, we're just introducing ourselves, saying our name, the pronouns we use, where we're zooming in from, and what brought us here today. You can just unmute yourself and go.
Hi, everybody. I am Fadike. I'm zooming in from Boston, and my pronouns are she and they. And I'm here because I need some stillness in my life. As we go through this transition, we're approaching a full moon and first hurricane in 30 years. And on-site face-to-face teaching in a couple of weeks with, the situation that we all know about. So I won't.
Yeah.
Good
to see you.
It's good to see you, Shantae. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Giorgio. I go by he, they, pronouns. I'm really glad to be here, and hi, Shantae.
Hi, Giorgio.
Good to see you and to see everyone. I'm excited to be with a group practicing. So and so really practicing with a group is something that has sort of fallen by the wayside for me during this past time. So many things. And it really, I find it so helpful and wonderful. So I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you. Janelle, Cloud, or Brianna, if you'd like to just
I can go ahead.
introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janelle. My pronouns are she and hers, and I'm calling in, excuse me, from traditional land of Cherokee in northern Alabama. And I just am wanting to be in community with folks today to practice. Glad to be here.
Good to see you.
Hey everyone, excuse me. My name's Brianna. My pronouns are they, them. I'm calling in from Shawnee, Miami territories in Cincinnati, Ohio. I really came with Tonglen on my mind today, and really glad to be met with such a beautiful circle of people. So thank you.
Good to see you, Brianna. I haven't seen you in a long time. I haven't seen your face.
Same to you, Shante.
Yeah, good to see your face. Cloud or Samina?
Sure, I'll jump in. Hey, everybody, good to be here. My name's Cloud. I use they, them pronouns. I'm in Kalapuya territory, also known as Eugene, Oregon. And yeah, like the time changes with teachers that I've usually like tuned into, having like the 3-hour time difference now, because I just got to the West Coast a few months ago. It's been like harder for me to like maintain that like tuning in. So glad I could jump in this morning. And yeah, just going through some like house conflicts. And I remember taking a workshop with you, Shante, about having like skillful means in conflict. And yeah, I know Tonglen is a little different from that, but I think it's just nice to have the familiarity of sharing the space with you. So
thank you. Samina, hi.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Samina. I am going to need to stay off video today, but I'm coming to you from Dish with One Spoon Treaty Territory, or Greater Toronto Area. And just thank you, Shante, for guiding us today. I think it was just really timely and critical.
Thank you. Good to see you. Okay, friends. So some of you are familiar with the practice of Tonglen, which is a compassion practice, and it's really, and some of you aren't. So I'll go through some of the more traditional instruction actually, but it's a practice. So I hold a monthly session once a month for both my students, my meditation students, and then anyone who wants to join. Usually around toward the end of the month, the 3rd or 4th week, either on a Saturday or a Sunday. And I've been doing rotating some practices, Tonglen, White Tara, which is also another healing compassion practice, and then various wind horse practices, which has to do with rousing our inherent confidence. And as the seasons change, I'll probably switch up some of those, but I've been trying to focus on just 3 practices so that people can kind of get familiar and deepen their practice both in community and at home. And I feel like Tonglen practice, which is really a transformation practice, it's working with difficulty from, more, smaller difficulty or sort of quotidian everyday life difficulty to larger difficulty. And it's really about using our own inherent energetic and imaginative qualities to transform things that are difficult, not so much to transform them, like to make someone sick well, but to transform our relationship, right? So, transforming my relationship to the difficulty of COVID, right? Transforming my relationship to the difficulty of difficult relationships or grief or sorrow or pain. And so that ability to transform my relationship enables me to then act with more skillfulness, potentially. So that's really what the practice is about. And as someone said, this Tonglen practice really arises from in the second cycle of teachings that Buddha Shakyamuni gave. The first cycle of teachings was really about, you could say, self-regulation, right? Working with our own personal wildness related to body, speech, and mind, right? And how do we begin to do less harm with our body, speech, and mind? So the first cycle of practices were really focused on that, and the initial sutras or scriptures or dharmic teachings, and people became really adept at those. And then Buddha Shakyamuni said, ha ha ha, okay, now here's the second cycle of teachings, which is really about then how do we work with our environment and other beings? Because if it's just about our self-regulation, our self-realization, our self-liberation, what about the rest of the world, right? What about other beings that maybe can't practice, both on the earth and in other realms? And so then it became relational, right? As liberation. So there are many, 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 many practices around that. Mahayana, the great vehicle, right? And Tonglen is one of those very foundational practices. It's from Tonglen. You get Maitri practices, loving kindness practices. You get practices for the funereal practices, right? Funeral rites practices, and all kinds of other practices. So one thing about Tonglen practice is that it's you can do it at home, you can do it with a group, and it is not meant to be kind of necessarily done in a flash by itself. It's always bookmarked by sitting practice, by shamatha, by peaceful abiding practice. So that's what we'll start with. But I'll walk us through a little bit of the 4 stages of Tonglen, and then we'll do the practice, and then we'll have Q&A. So we can do Tonglen on the spot, but we're going to really talk about more of formal practice. So there are 4 stages to Tonglen. So we'll start with first orienting our body to space and being with each other. And then we'll go through the 4 stages. So as a formal meditation practice. So we'll sit for a little bit, and then the 4 stages are, first we touch into or flash on or sense our own experience of openness, both internal openness or spaciousness and external. So all the space that's available to us in the cosmos. So that could be just feeling the spaciousness of where you are and how spacious that is, or feeling even beyond that, the spaciousness to our neighborhood, to the territory we're on, to the earth, and then beyond, right? But just understanding that space is infinite, and that's what we actually tap into, right? We don't just try to ramp it up in our finite selves, but we actually connect to all this space that's both internal and external. So that's the first stage. And it's sometimes called, you are touching into the absolute sense of Buddha nature there, or your own inherent wisdom, wakefulness, that's always there. The second stage has to do with, then we'll work with textures and breath around sort of freshness and kind of staleness. Claustrophobia, that's like the first stage of working with Tonglen. Texture, light, that kind of thing, sensation. The third stage is more working with then specific specific situations and or people. And then the fourth stage is then we expand that out, and then we come back to sitting. So sometimes with Tonglen, we may feel, you could feel overwhelmed, you could feel very sad, you could cry, we could feel upset. So I want to also remind you, you can always stop and just sit where you are and rest, and just, you know, put your hand on your heart center and your belly. You don't have to do anything that feels too overwhelming, because this is a practice of sending. Tonglen means sending and taking, or giving and receiving. Giving and taking. So we're taking in what's difficult, transforming it through our breath and through our kind of heart, and then sending out what's helpful. And so that can be difficult. And so, as always, please take care of yourselves, your body, your emotions, whatever you need. And I also offer that you can do these practices, you know, sitting, laying down if you feel like you need to lay down, or you can stand. So please just find whatever is comfortable for you. So first, let's start with just our sitting practice. So first, feel your feet and your seat connected to Mother Earth. And really, without this connection to the earth, there can be no wakefulness, because Earth is our home. We're a part of this planet, and it's our witness. As the Buddha said when he woke up, I touched the earth in the Bhumi Sparsha position. So mantra or mudra, just touch the earth and said, the earth is my witness for my wakefulness. Just feeling like gravity hold us. Feeling earth supporting us. And then the front of your body really is soft. It can have a sense of melting and relaxation. And letting, you know, those habitual parts of our body that may be tight, our jaw, our throat, our eyes, our forehead, our ears, chest, the shoulders, the belly, the genitals, letting that front part of the body, the relational part of the body, relax. And the back of our body is our support. So we balance that relaxing, soft front with a back that's strong or upright, but not uptight. So we're working with that balance. Feeling all of the spaciousness of the sky above us, Father Sky, our siblings, the planets, the stars, other beings, the detritus that's in the sky, in the cosmos, in the blue-black space that surrounds all things. Feeling that massive, unfathomable openness. And then feeling the kind of connection with, at the earth level, to trees and rock and the relative sky and other beings, insects, water. reptiles, mammals, ancestors. Your eyes can be closed or open, it doesn't really matter, but they should be soft. So there shouldn't, if they're closed, they shouldn't be tightly closed. We're not trying to block anything out. It's like they're just being, your eyeballs are being held in velvet. And if they're open, they can be soft gaze. Your hands can rest where they feel comfortable, on your thighs or on your knees or on your chair. Or it can just be in your lap. And begin to come into a sensation and a feeling your body as it breathes. Just your regular breath. You can even exhale 1, 2, or 3 times. To exhale stale air. Just feel that magnificent, miraculous experience of breathing. Wherever you feel it, your back, your lungs, your feet, your belly, your legs, fingertips, throat, wherever you might feel that breath. That's where you're resting your attention, is on that feeling. Maybe it's more just a sense, an energetic feeling. Your body breathing. And we'll sit like this for a little bit. Sometimes when we're sitting, we may experience emotional, physical, or discursive movement. And you can just invite that into your practice. It's nothing to be pushed away or dominated or seduced by. We just make room for it to rise and fall. And if we notice ourselves drifting away or have drifted away from our feeling of the body breathing, when we notice, that's great. Our awareness is alerting us. And we can decide if we want to come back to the feeling of our body breathing or if we want to, indulge. Either way, it's okay. No problem. Eventually, we come back to the object of meditation, which is this feeling of the body. And we work with that with a sense of gentleness and kindness toward ourselves. So now you can just flash on openness, sense of openness, spaciousness. It can be the sky or the cosmos or anything that makes you feel connected to your inherent worthiness and spaciousness that you possess. And we do this in order to be able to take in whatever it is we're going to come take in and transform. We have enough space to work with that. Next, the instruction is to breathe in what feels, this is in terms of texture, hot and heavy, kind of stinky and claustrophobic, smoky. Taking that in and breathing out what feels cool and breezy and fresh and clean. We'll work with that, doing that for a little bit. Breathing in what feels claustrophobic and hot, dense, thick, smelly, sticky, cloying, and breathing out what feels fresh and unpolluted and airy. Right. Just working with that in breath, that's breathing in what's claustrophobic, sensory, and then breathing out what feels fresh. Again, your eyes can be closed or open. Breathing in a sense of smokestack, garbage. Breathing out a sense of freshness, airiness, unpolluted. Breathing in what's hot and heavy, polluted, and breathing out what's light and cool and unpolluted. I'm trying to give equal time on the in-breath as you can. And maybe being able to even breathe with all of the pores in your body in and out, 360 degrees. So the breath is not just through the mouth and the nose, it's with the whole body. Again, if any of this feels too painful or too difficult, you just relax. You bring to mind a person or a situation that feels good, that feels wholesome, that feels compassion, you feel toward which you feel compassion and love. Visualizing their face in front of you, or visualizing saying I love you to that person or being or situation. This is just to help open up our hearts and our minds, to bring in something that's not difficult at all. It's very loving. That can be yourself, that can be another person, a being, another situation, it can be an item that you really love. Just feeling that in your heart center and throughout your whole body. And you can breathe in whatever suffering that person or thing you love may be experiencing. Breathing out whatever relief they may need. Breathing in this loving situation or person, any difficulty they may be experiencing. Then breathing out relief. And you just feel whatever you're feeling. You don't have to manipulate it or try to feel something. Just feel your feelings in and out. And even if it's discomfort, that's your link to other beings who may be in discomfort. And in the fourth stage here, we're trying to expand out our feelings of taking in suffering and offering relief. Expand that out as far as you can so that you may bring to mind a particular group of people who are suffering. I know we have some major events that have come into our collective consciousness. Haiti, Lebanon, Afghanistan, the Uyghur people in China, people suffering from COVID-19 globally, indigenous people globally, Black diasporic people globally, women and girls, queer and trans people, any group you want to expand out to, or if you want to expand it to all people, but sometimes it helps if you think of a particular group. You want to take in first that suffering that you imagine that they could be feeling, fear, uncertainty, resentment, anger, rage, and send out whatever relief is available. Tapping into that spaciousness that is all around us. Again, so breathing in the suffering of this particular group of people or beings, and breathing out relief. One of the images of compassion is of a mother whose child has fallen into a river, and the mother doesn't have arms to rescue her child. So what she is able to offer is her own ability to experience suffering and offer relief. Transforming our relationship to our situation and helping others to transform their relationships with us. I'm going to ring the bell. And we're going to go back to sitting, but first you can just feel coolness in your own experience, refreshing air, wind, that you can breathe that both in and out. May all beings enjoy happiness and the root of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the root of suffering. And we can come back to our posture, sitting meditation posture. If you feel a little, you don't necessarily feel like you can go back into sitting meditation, just sit and feel what you feel. Feeling your body breathing. Feeling maybe your heart center feels activated or other parts of your body feel activated, feel tingly or feel heat. You can just feel that. You can just, if it feels good, you can put your hand to your heart or your belly, or whatever part of your body may need comforting. Sometimes the throat needs comforting. Sometimes it's the back or the front of the body, whatever it is. Just offer yourself a sense of light or even the depth of, sometimes I like to offer myself the color of the cosmos, which is blue-black. Feels very healing. With some twinkly stars, suns. Feeling our connection again with the earth, with the infinite sky, and with our environment. Feeling the support of Mother Earth to hold our, and space really to hold our experiences, our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions, our energy, our bodies. And allowing whatever feelings are occurring to just be, give them all the space they need. So we can come out of our meditation now, and if you need to stretch or move or get a glass of water or anything, please do whatever feels nourishing. This practice can sometimes be a little destabilizing, but it also can be very tenderizing, which is a good thing. So I'd love to hear any questions that you have. Yeah, or any experiences you want to share. And, I can say a little bit more about the practice and some helpful supports or reminders.
So I was trying to visualize, just something, that sense of love right? And realize that a lot of my relationships feel really fraught right now. So I thought about my dog, who's just a ball of light. And that helped me get past that. But that was really like the one thing that let me feel my heart open a little bit, because so many of my other relationships just feel that there's just like this sense of angst and uncertainty about them that was not comforting.
Yes, that's right. Whatever feels the least complicated, is great. I too, like, I thought of my dog who passed away in 2018, Tilo. He's one of my protectors. And he's just like, I call on him a lot. I call on Drala too. My dog is still alive, but he's, transitioned. So there's kind of a purity there. But yeah, the dogs are really easy. So even when they're annoying, it's like the love is pretty uncomplicated with animals usually.
My son had a sleepover the other night, and a friend of his asked if our house was haunted, and he said no, but there are friendly protector spirits there that are named Ranger and Stinkbug, our dogs that have passed on. Speaking of.
Wow. From the mouth of babes. Love it. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi. So I hadn't picked my wife, but of course, doing it with myself, I found myself in relationship to her, and all the years, which were basically fine, great, amazing, no regret years, although many hard. But what happened was an alleviation of all the times, weeks, days of stuckness in it. And that was a revelation, to just say, okay, so now I have the opportunity outside of the direct relationship. I mean, I feel her presence always, but you refer to your dog as a protector, that outside of the relationship, to work on the part that was me stuck for hours, days, weeks in whatever was our stuckness or my part of that stuckness. And instead of doing it directly day to day, so it just opened up as an opportunity, which was
beautiful,
really powerful. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, I have a lot of identification with that. When my mother passed away in 2013, I'm look. I have a shrine to her actually, so I'm looking at her shrine. We had a difficult relationship. I was not what she imagined in a child, and she was not what I imagined in a parent, But the last 7 years of her life I had some growth, and I just was like, I'm just gonna love this difficult person. And when she was dying, I had the fortune to, I wasn't living in the New York metropolitan area at the time, but I was close enough that I could fly back frequently when the last 6 months of her life. And she was in hospice the last week of her life, and I had just been with my family. It was around Christmas time, and then she died in the middle of January, and I was able to be there. And I remember just the pain of that transition, and then when she actually transitioned, how painful it was. I mean, it was beyond anything I'd ever experienced before. And then I began to experience our relationship continuing. very differently, but no less real. And that Tonglen was one of the practices I did use to help me, because grief is like its own, it's almost an embodied, it's almost like another being. It's like it's almost like a solid person, you know?
Yeah.
It has its own life. And it was unpredictable for, you know, the first couple of years, really. But that ability to actually work with my grief and to work with the things that felt unfinished and stuck with her has been one of those most powerful experiences of my life. And that's, you know, for me, I really had to go back to more ancestral practices in my lineage to access that, because in the West, we're not really taught about the, you know, this part we're in right now is actually the shortest part of our existence, you know what I mean? So the before and the after is infinite, but this part, you know, and so learning to be able to continue relationships with beings and loved ones is really a very powerful skill. So I'm really, and I think Tonglen is definitely one of the ways to open up that, because it's so much about the senses, right? And to open up that gateway so that we can work through problems, you know. And then, you know, one of my teachers, Lama Rod, says, you know, part of this work is also healing backwards, you know, healing ancestry backwards, healing relationships backwards, that it's not just forwards or, you know, lateral, but it's also healing those who have transitioned and maybe they had unfinished work, you know. So thank you for that. That was really beautiful. Appreciate it.
This is an interesting theme, because one of the first things that happened for me was touching on a sadness and sort of an inner mourning, a part of me that's still crying the loss of an elder, and also touching on that spirit of that elder who communication was very clear, was that you know, let that go so that so that we can talk.
Yeah, right.
that elder is patiently waiting for me to finish mourning and release that crying and that sadness internally, so that that communication line can be open and established. And he was acerbic and passionate in life, and it continues to be so. So he's like, come now. So a Trini elder. And yeah, so that was a blessing to experience that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think sometimes, I mean, my experience has been in, as a convert to Buddhism in my young life, that the way that I was trained initially in this practice was, even though, I mean, initially I started out in a Zen tradition. Actually, I started out in two Japanese traditions, Zen and then Soka Gakkai, and then I was in a Tibetan tradition in Shambhala. And all of those societies have very strong, you know, Japan and Tibet have very strong ancestral practices. That is, I mean, you go to Japan, there's a kami shrine, there's a shrine to the ancestors everywhere. There's not, you watch their horror movies, it's like all about, you know. And Tibet certainly is all about, I mean, the Tibetan Buddhist practice is totally, all of it is totally infused with their indigenous practice, the Bön practice. And so in some ways it was interesting to be trained sometimes by, you know, the not to the higher teachers, but by Westerners, right? Usually who were white, where there's a real disconnect between ancestors, right? And there's a real distrust of that, and a real trust in the rational, so-called rational world. And what I found for myself was that really inhibited a lot of my meditation practice. And in the last, number of years, I've really, I would say 5 or 6 years, I've really been deepening both my African ancestral practices around ancestry, and also getting to the Bun practices. So a lot of the things we do in Western Buddhism actually have these practices, but they're kind of kept away from us to not scare people, because people just want to come and meditate and feel better, right? But actually, that's blocking off a lot of doorways to freedom and liberation. So, that's not for everyone, but I hope that this crew of people feels comfortable enough to whatever that connection may be, whether it's just the spirits of the land we're on, the energetic, or sometimes real beings of the land we're on. You feel that sometimes when you walk somewhere and you feel the energy, good, bad, or indifferent, right? You're like, there's something it's like going on here. Like, I live on this corner and we're like, what? It's a corner of craziness. We're just like, what? You go to the middle of the block and it's like, it feels like you've crossed over some other barrier. And then I walk into the park and it's, a different experience. So that we allow that also into our practice, because it opens something up in us that is about healing, is about communication, is about connection, and is about relationship, and yeah. Are there any other thoughts or questions or?
This whole conversation is wild, and I'm having all kinds of thoughts about ancestry and lineage, in the sense of, like, in my Irish background, the secret queer people. There's a whole line of women who never married in my background, so I'm not literally descended from them, but all these aunts who never married. Great aunt. Anyway, that's what it's got me thinking of, not literal ancestry, but that lineage, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm taking that all in. But the question that I wanted to raise, just to kind of put it out there, is the resistance to doing Tonglen, which I have been feeling a long time. I've not done it for a while, so today was both lovely and a bit daunting, because the world is so full of suffering right now. And
yes.
I'm going through a phase of I skip the news stories, I skip the funding appeals, I'm turning away right now.
Yes.
Which doesn't feel great, and it also feels like I just can't. And so I'm trying to figure out how to work with that, or let it go, or whatever. It's push-pull kind of thing.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, and that will determine my answer.
Okay.
Have you taken your Bodhisattva? You taken the Bodhisattva vow?
Yeah.
Okay. So for those of you that know, the vow of the Bodhisattva, it's one of the 2 main vows in Buddhism, traditional Buddhism. One is the refuge vow, when you officially say, okay, I'm going to become a Buddhist, and I'm going to work, I'm going to work with myself, right? I'm going to work with my mind. I'm going to work with self-regulation, work with my speech, work with my body, because I want to, be liberated from suffering, right? The truth of suffering and its causes, and then there's a path, and then there's the guarantee of liberation at some point, right? If we do this work. And then some of us who are crazy say, well, you know what?
Yes.
just want myself to be, I want every being to be liberated, every being past, present, and future to be liberated. And I want to do that. I want them all to be liberated before I'm liberated. That's how I'll achieve liberation, is by helping others. So I'm going to say two things to you. So one is, you don't have a choice if you're a Bodhisattva. You don't have. You go back and read The Way of Bodhisattva, Shanti David. He's like, why did I say I would be a Bodhisattva? This sucks. I hate it. People are the worst. Literally, it's like they're terrible. They keep making all this. They make problems for every other being. People are humans, boo. But at the same time, humans, because we're in the middle, right? We're just right. We're not to God realm where everything is wonderful and gold, and and we're not to hell realm where we're suffering so much that we can't experience even a little relief. Because we experience both pleasure and pain, we can actually work with spiritual tools, right? So it's choiceless for the Bodhisattva. That's one. That's the right. That's the like Buddhist teacher. On the other side of that is, we don't have to take it all on all at the same time. Because if we get too discouraged or too broken, then we will turn away, right? And we can't actually feel the connection between our suffering and other beings suffering, because it's just too much. So this ability to kind of regulate, right? And to be like, you know what, I do need to turn off the news, or I do need to get off social media, or I do need to, I have days where I'm just off I know it doesn't seem like it for those of me following social media, where I'm just off, right? I just can't, it's too much, right? So we do need to, part of being a Bodhisattva is also working with our own suffering and recharging, right? And so doing things that fill us up, connecting into that. One of my teachers, Lama Justin, I don't know that I believe him, but he's like, I don't believe in, what does he say? He's something like, he didn't say like, I don't believe in being overwhelmed. He's like, I don't believe in running out of energy. I was like, we're different. It's like, you have kids and a wife and you have a full-time job and you're Dorothy. And he's like, you just have to tap into that. He's like, I get exhausted. He's like, but you have to pull in that energy that's available. And I was like, okay, right. So we can't save the world, but we can save the world, right? It's small, it's connection, right? It can be hyper local, right? Maybe it's right. Sometimes we want, they're too much, right? But maybe right where we are, we begin to, and then we can expand our capacity to hold other beings. First, we have to really hold ourselves, our own suffering, and then we expand it to, our circles. It's like concentric. It's the same thing with like the shamatha concentric circles. We go from out to in. Well, this way we go from in to out, right? And we build up our capacity to hold more and more. But we don't have to either hold all of it for all time and all place, or give up. We can hold what feels within our capacity as we work to build our capacity. So one of the things in reference to Tonglen is to do it regularly. And that could just mean once a week.
Yeah. So
that we build up our capacity for that. And you can also do on the spot Tonglen. So a lot of times I don't, carry cash. There's someone in my neighborhood who I, for a long time, was giving him cash, but I never remember to carry cash. Every time he sees me, he kind of gives me this stink eye. So I'm like, oh, right. But I can't, even though homelessness is a solvable problem in the United States, it's one of the few solvable problems actually in the world that we have. I can't solve that problem, but I can help, I give him, he never wears a mask. So I give him masks, I give him toothpaste, give him socks, I'm like, socks, underwear, and t-shirts. He's like, yep, so one person, there are other people who work with other unhoused people in the neighborhood, right? One of the laundromats lets them all do their laundry for free. One of the restaurants, they keep tabs on another guy, right? So it's maybe it's just like we adopt one person, or a few people instead of like, there are people in this world who have the resources to solve major problems. We're probably not, none of us are Elon Musk, right? And he's clearly not focused on solving, shooting penises into the,
Sorry.
space, right? Right? But we can do local.
Yeah.
All right. Our Bodhisattva acts can be very local,
Thank you.
we can move away from the kind of like missionary type thing and just be like, it's just going to be what's in front of me,
Yeah.
So thank you. It's a good question. It's a good question because it's but one thing I will tell you, and I know you're not asking this, and I know you said you're not doing Vajrayana practices, but one thing I will say is that people who are tantrikas and sadhakas, that's all about being a bodhisattva. And those practices can expand that capacity to do that. You just have to find the practices that feel uncorrupted to you.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other story. But I just want to say that's actually one of the doorways to expanding your capacity for
that's
activity.
Whole other conversation, but thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Are there any other questions or? I would like to give you a resource. So this book, some of you, it's Pema Chodron's Tonglen, The Path of Transformation. It's very thin. It has step-by-step stuff. It also has a lot of sort of theoretical teachings, and also so things about like what to do when we get stuck, right? So we can reconnect to our motivation. And one of the great things that I forgot this book says is something that doesn't get taught about a lot. I don't see it, but is a practice that I try to do often, which is the 4 reminders. So we all know the 4, not all, but the 4, noble truths, right? The first teaching Buddha Shakyamuni gave about, the truth of suffering, that there's suffering and that there are causes, and we can identify its causes, birth, old age, sickness, and death, and that there's a path that we can walk, the Eightfold Path of liberation, and that there's freedom, right? But then there's, in Buddhism, there's the 4 this and the 3 that and the 5 and the 12 and the 8. I mean, they're ridiculous. But the 4 reminders is a great motivation because it's a contemplation you can do. Maybe you're like, you know what, I can't do Tonglen, and maybe I can't even meditate, but I can think of the 4 reminders. And these cultivate bodhicitta, right? Or help us to cultivate. So the first is, we're reminded of the preciousness of being born human. I mean, humans invented Buddhism, so of course we're going to say being human is optimal, but we can hear, we can see, we can taste, we can touch, we can smell truth, right? And so reminding us that we probably were born as a being that couldn't hear and could not practice, right? Whatever our spiritual practice is, whatever our path is. So we have the ability, because we have sense faculties, we have a heart, we have motivation, we have a mind that we can cultivate, right? And they say being born a human is like, what is it? A turtle sticks its head up in the ocean and, sticks it through a ring or a bubble, right? And we know how vast the oceans are. So it's 1 in a trillion, right? So we have this preciousness of our existence, which is not forever. And the second is death, right? The traditional verse says, this body will be a corpse, right? Thinking this, I will practice every day. So the shortness of life, even if we live, I talked to my grandmother, she's 95, and she's like, I remember what, it's like, it still feels short, even though she had this long life, So that, you know, that death is certain. We know that everything that's born will die, but we don't know when. So, okay, let's motivate. Let's do, let's be, let's connect. 3, karma, or physics, spiritual physics. We reap what we sow. You know, through mind, body, and speech, what we put out there eventually blooms. You know, and so it doesn't have to be for, you know, we don't have to believe in lifetimes. We could just this lifetime. And sometimes it's not. The other thing I want to say about karma is Buddha says no one understands karma until you're enlightened. I'm not enlightened, but one thing I will say about karma, it's not just, one thing I realized is that my karma is not just mine. This karma is relational. So I have ancestral karma, there's geographical karma, there's the karma of whatever nation we live in, there's karma of organizations, and there's there's all kinds of karma, right? So there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of causes and conditions bumping around, but through my practice, I can burn up some of those karmic seeds, right? The point is to have no karma, right? Good, bad. But I can, through practice, I can burn up some of that excess, right? So that it's not just spinning the cycle of suffering and relief. Like, ugh. And then finally, you know, the truth of suffering is that's the reality. All things that all things that are born must die. All things that are fresh will turn sour, you know? And so that's part of our experience. And so instead of trying to run away from the ups and the downs, we learn how to become like a spiritual surfer, you know? We learn how to, oh, here comes the wave. And the wave is my friend, you know? And then it'll recede, and then it'll come. And instead of seeing that as kind of like, oh, it's like, oh yeah, let me actually experience it. Let me experience my frustration, my sadness, my grief, my pain, my fear, rather than trying to push it away. And knowing that just as those feelings arose, they will also dissolve. So the 4 reminders are a great motivation. Then it's like, I want to do something. I can actually offer my practice to others, to myself and others. I can't do Tonglen 24/7, but maybe once a week I'll do it. You know, I'll sit for 5 minutes, I'll do Tonglen for 5 minutes, and I'll sit for another 5 minutes. The end, you know? And that way we begin to cultivate and build up our tolerance for the ability to work with the reality of life. You know, we don't just sit in our suffering. Oh, it's suffering, so I guess I have to suffer. There's suffering and there's relief. You know? And practicing is part of cultivating that relief. And sometimes we don't want to practice. That's also part of it too. Fine, no problem. Eventually, we'll come back to what is beneficial for us. When the other book I mentioned, if people are interested, it's a little bit more. Shanti David was a little grumpy, but he wrote this great book. I don't know. I think he's like a 7th century guy, and in India, and he wrote this great book on, or what is not India? He wrote this great book on the way, you know, and it's like in prose. Some of it's really weird. Some of it's like misogynistic. You know, it's like, right, patriarchal, but it's also really beautiful when like contemplating the ability to actually help other beings be relieved from suffering, and how deep of a spiritual practice that is, and how honestly, y'all, few people in this world do that. You know, so it's up to us, you know? And also we're not alone in doing that. I would say that the connecting with ancestors, and ancestors doesn't have to be blood, be kin, you know, of the heart or of relation, or it could be lineages that we just feel connected to. You know, for me, it's like people like Harriet Tubman and Audre Lorde and James Baldwin. Like, we're not related, I don't think, but they're infused in me. and connecting to ancestors really helps to bolster our power and ability to hold. I think about, sometimes I get, really depressed, right? And like a month ago, I was like, oh, climate change and climate crisis and the whatever COVID. I was just, everything. I was like, giraffes on the endangered list. I mean, I was losing. I was really, really, really angry and sad. And I could feel myself just wanting to, and I like for a day, just let myself be. And I have like pictures of Harriet Tubman everywhere. And I just like saw her. And I just thought about what she achieved in her lifetime with none of the advantages and things that I have. What she was able to do, the skills that she had. And I was like, okay, I can do it. I can do it. And so that's just the reminder. It's like, you can do it. We can alleviate the suffering of ourselves and others. So yeah, I think we're about at time. If you would like, I'm just gonna put my link. I want to say something about Dana. So recently, I've been thinking a lot about Dana. So traditionally, you can offer a heart gift to the teacher. So I want to say that that's not necessary. Don't feel bad if you can't or don't want to. Sometimes people offer monetary gifts, but I also accept poems and other creative things. But I also wanted to say, Dana, and I started talking to someone about this and they sent me some reading on this, so I'm very excited to learn more. Dana should not just be offered up, right, to the teacher. It can also be offered down or out. So if you feel that, so I say that Dana can also be offered to others who are in need, and that would be offering Dana to me. So it doesn't always have to be offered to the teacher. It can be offered to laterally or to someone who who's below in terms of the, not in terms of value, but in terms of what they have. So I want to start saying that more to people so that we are able to shake up some of this like hierarchy of how these things go. I mean, I have another job that, thankfully I don't have to live off, Dharma teaching, because that is not a life I want at this point in my life. But I want to just also offer that as a possibility that you can also give it out. It can go in all directions. So you're more than welcome to give it to the teacher. I have student loans, so I'm happy I'm happy to have that. But I also wanted to offer that it can be given in any direction. So, and it doesn't have to be monetary. Sometimes it can just be your time, or you listening to someone, or learning something from someone, about something you don't know. So trying to shake up the kind of capitalist relationship or the imperial colonial relationship, the patriarchal relationship to Dharma, to Dana and Dharma. Thank you all so much. I will be, I try to offer these once a month. And my hope is if you're on my newsletter, you'll get an alert about it, usually beginning of the month. And then I post about it on social media. So if you're not on my newsletter, feel free to sign up. You could also sign up through that link that has Linktree, has everything. Just scroll down. And I think next month, I don't know, it's the change of the season, so I might change up the practice. But if not, it'll be, I think, White Tara. And so, which is a really, really great practice. And it's a practice that if you don't have it, I can give you a PDF. So let's dedicate the merit, and just whatever you have received that may have been beneficial, just send that out to all beings in all directions, who can't practice or won't practice or don't know they can practice and experience relief. And that, you know, as they say in other spaces, you got to give it away to keep it. So anything that felt beneficial, we give that, we offer our merit to all beings in all directions. So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you all. Please stay safe. Those of you who are, including myself, who are returning to the classroom with very little instruction or offices or whatever, just please take care of yourselves and organize and fight the power. So, all right, my loves, have a beautiful weekend, beautiful Saturday. Bye.